Hello and welcome to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. Here we are today live on May 1st, 2026, which today is a very special day for anybody who owns a business that's based in Florida, because this is the deadline to file your annual report for your SunBiz. Now, this is a really simple, easy to do thing, basically just making sure that your information is up to date with the state and paying the renewal fee, which is typically like $100 to $150. However, if that is not paid by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, your business basically now is subject to a $400 additional late fee. If you don't believe in that, we actually have a whole website set up for that at endthelatefee.com. That's endthelatefee.com, where you could send a message to lawmakers that you think this is unjust. But that is what it is. And the good news is, it's like we're back in time right now, because every year this comes around. So if you haven't done your SunBiz annual report yet, this is the time to do it. If you're a procrastinator like me, what are you doing? This is midnight. We only have hours left at this point here. So it's really easy to do. You go to SunBiz, you hit File Annual Report. You make sure, again, the information is all the same. Your address, if any officers or managing members have changed for your LLC or corporation, you update that. And if you don't have an LLC or corporation, then you don't need that. If you're a real estate sales associate, you may or may not have a SunBiz set up. You may be being paid personally through your social security number as opposed to an entity with an EIN number. So let's go to the board and we could really break down what a SunBiz is. If you are somebody with a real estate license and you may be wondering, should I incorporate myself? Should I form an LLC? And short answer is yes. And we're going to talk about the differences between operating really as a sole proprietor essentially versus having this separate entity with a federal tax ID. Now, I'm not an accountant, I'm not an attorney, I'm just a real estate instructor / real estate broker, if that counts for anything. But as far as my real estate instructor credibility goes, it's going to be basic information. But the good news is this is not that complicated. But should you want to make this complicated or more advanced, absolutely get in touch with an attorney, whatever legal professional, tax professional, to make sure you're really maximizing the benefits of having something like this. So let me put a new page on the screen here. So when you get started in real estate, you'll have a real estate license. And that license will have your legal name on it. Your actual legal name as it is legally. So on that license, if you are a sales associate, you have two options. Now, you could practice real estate as is. And that's going to be where you're paid to your social security number. So as an independent contractor in real estate, most real estate agents are independent contractors. There are employee type of jobs out there that, again, would involve your personal social security number. But that's where you're being paid personally. So as an employee, it's pretty much one of your only options. Pretty much the only option as an employee is you're getting paid personally. That's really what the social security number is about there, is personally. But through the use of your license, you can also be paid to an entity, where instead of an SSN, you'll have an FEIN, which stands for a Federal Employer Identification Number. Federal Employer Identification Number. Kind of like the Social Security number for businesses. Just like the Social Security number is a unique identifier for every person, the Federal Employer Identification Number is a unique identifier for whatever corporation or LLC. or partnerships, etc., whatever other types of entities that may be issued a employer tax ID number. But for you as a real estate professional, that's what it's going to be, either a corporation or an LLC. Now, if your license is a sales associate license, there we go, so much clearer. So Social Security number, you get paid in your name, your personal name. An employer tax ID, you're getting paid in the corp or LLC name, which this can go one of two ways, and that's why I say if you're a sales associate, which is where you start out at. So if you just got your real estate license and you're registered with a broker, or you're a broker associate registered with a broker. Really, it's anytime you're an associate of a broker, you can't use what's known as a trade name. So essentially, as a sales associate, it has to be your name, or your name, PA, LLC, or PLLC. So that's anytime you're an associate, sales associate or broker associate. And so this is one of the things that is taught in your pre-licensing course, and this is extremely important to know as an associate. If you do want to take advantage of the benefits that you have of being able to be paid to an entity rather than being paid personally, you have to make sure, so that your broker can legally pay you, that you do it in one of these options right here. But it must be your name, your name, your name. There's really one of these options here. That's basically your options that you have to incorporate yourself as a professional licensee who is an associate of a broker. Now, FREC rules change when you are the broker, not a broker associate, meaning the broker that's in charge, because now the brokerage entity, because you'd have an entity for the brokerage, but this brokerage can use a trade name. Now, what is a trade name? A trade name is a business name other than your real legal name. So it's not just your name PA or your name LLC. That's what you're limited to as an associate, as a sales associate, or even as a broker associate. The broker associate gives you the ability to start your own brokerage, but as long as you're registered with a broker, you have a fiduciary capacity to that broker. So again, that's why you're in that associate classification, because everything you do is on behalf of your broker. But the broker, for their entity, can have a trade name, ABC Realty Incorporated, for example. That would be okay. To put one example up here. Nobody is born as ABC Realty, at least not yet. You give it time, who knows what the names they come up with in the future, but that's a fictitious name. Now, if this were your name, if your name were ABC Realty, your legal actual name were ABC Realty, and your license were issued in ABC Realty, then I guess you could be ABC Realty PA. But as far as teams go, to throw another combination of this mix here, teams, they don't need to have a SunBiz or anything like that, but if they do, it must still be under this format right here. So this is where I see a lot of agents get confused on this. The team, you're still an associate. It's not until you're able to open your own brokerage that you're able to use a trade name. Now, you could still have a team name. That is okay, because there is a team roster that has to be kept by the broker to be able to provide to the DBPR should they ever need it in terms of an investigation. But you're still on that road of, again, being an associate, so having to use your personal name followed by PLLC or PLLC. Whereas if you're using a brokerage entity, because you're a broker and you filed the application with the state for that brokerage entity, you'll also have to do another application with the Department of State, the SunBiz. SunBiz.org is the website that goes right to the Department of State website that deals with businesses and registering your business. And overall, it's a pretty easy process, especially as long as you don't do it late. And then it's still a pretty easy process. It's just now with a 4x late fee. Because normally this is like $100 to $150 depending on the entity type to do your annual report. And the annual report, again, is just basically an update on your information. It's super easy. There's actually tons of companies and services that are out there that will do it for you. But if you could do it yourself, you can also save a little bit of money. Now, especially as you start to have more entities, more businesses, more going on in your life, maybe it does make sense to have somebody who is charging a premium but is getting it taken care of for you. However it is that you decide to run your business, you absolutely can. Because regardless of whether you're an individual agent, a team, a brokerage, whoever it may be, you can have a team of people that's helping power your business. That's really the whole point of incorporating yourself here, because if you want to have assistants on payroll, you could have unlicensed assistants or licensed assistants that are on a payroll that is paid by you personally, even if you're not officially a team. Because if they're not licensed, then they don't get paid any compensation based on sales. But you could even put yourself on the payroll. That is something that you'll want to talk to your accountant about, but likely what they'll tell you is that might be a good way for you to be able to pay yourself from your real estate business, is to create a payroll for yourself. And yes, there could always be bonuses and et cetera and whatnot, but what is possible when you have a corporation or an LLC with one of those FEIN numbers is you have a lot more possibility for business expenses, because now you're operating a business, whereas over here, whether you're working for a company as an employee or you're just a 1099 contractor who doesn't have their own entity, you're basically doing this personally. And these are the people, not the employees, because as an employee, your employer is paying a large share of your payroll taxes. So even before the money that you see on your paycheck with the money that's taken out of your pay, there's additional payroll taxes your employer has to pay over and beyond what you even see on your pay stub. But as a 1099 independent contractor who is not incorporated, you're taking the full brunt of all of that, and as well as the least amount of ability to be able to expense things, because you're just a personal person, not a unique company with its own set of guidelines and rules and governing organization. And that's even as an associate, because you might think, okay, I'm joining a brokerage, so that's the company. You're right to a certain degree, because, you join a good brokerage, there's a certain culture, there's people, there's support. They're definitely part of your team one way or another, however you look at it. But that's what your brokerage is. It's a platform for your success, which, yes, that is a company, but you're a company that grows on top of that company. You're a company that's attached to that company until you decide to go to another brokerage. Because if you do decide to move your license to another brokerage, your same corporation is fine. You don't need to redo this because you've changed brokerage, because that's why it's just in your personal name. That's not why. It's because that's what the state allows. But that's one of the benefits there, is because this is just attached to you personally. It doesn't matter if you change brokerages. You don't have to set up a new entity. But you do need to make sure you do that annual report year after year after year after year. Every single year, it's that $100 to $150 or whatever they legislate the amount to be if they change it in the future. But it's been that amount for quite some time now. And again, it's just a fee. That's why I think they don't raise the price, because this isn't really going to any direct cost. Yes, there's cost to operate the Department of State, but it's basically a tax. We don't have many taxes on businesses here in Florida, but this $100 to $150 fee to do your annual report, that's one of the taxes we have to pay. So our business does not get administratively resolved by the state, which is not something that you want. It can be reinstated, but there's even more fees that apply for reinstatements versus the late fee that you have versus having to catch up on previous years. So the easiest solution to this is maybe on January 1st, because it's basically every year between January and sometimes it's April 30th, but I think that's when the year ends or the month ends on a weekend. So if that were a weekend, maybe then it is early. But whatever the case may be, it's May 1st. You can check it on the website always, sunbiz.org. And it's just such a minor thing. And even $400, that's still, relatively minor in the grand scheme of things, but it's not minor as it relates to just a $100 cost if you did this on time. That $100 turns into $500 when you factor in that late fee there. So you don't want that. You want to make sure you do it on time. Literally, it's, again, just updating the compliance with the state to make sure that they have on file who is in charge of this company. Do that once a year. Make sure the address is up to date. Whoever's in charge is on there, and you're good to go. Nice and simple. It's just as easy even filing that initial articles of incorporation with the state to be able to set that up. The key thing, though, because I've had to tell a lot of agents, you need to go back and change that, either because I'm their broker and we couldn't pay them, because this has to be in your licensed name for you to be able to earn the compensation. One of the rules of the Florida Real Estate Commission, but that's what SunBiz is. And again, it's not necessary. You could operate personally, whether you're working as an employee rather than a contractor, or you're just a contractor who hasn't incorporated yet. And that's why I say it as someone who hasn't incorporated yet, because incorporating is something that you'll want to do. It's not necessarily a day one, like, let me drop everything because I just got my real estate license and I need to go file an LLC. No. My rule of thumb is you really don't need this until you start making money. And having the real estate license doesn't initially automatically greenlight you. All of a sudden, money is flowing to you, and so you need the LLC. It gives you the possibility, and who knows, you might even have some ducks already in a row to be able to move on now that you have a license. And so you could be making money very quickly, especially if you know what you're doing. And part of our formula for success here at the Tampa School of Real Estate to help make sure our students are as prepared as possible, that formula for success is taking the post-licensing course as soon as you get your real estate license. Because if you have your real estate license, you've proven to the state that you know the laws and rules that are the focus of this 500-page textbook right here. And maybe you simplified it down with our 100-page workbook that comes with the Pass First Try exam prep tools. But now once you have your license, there's no more state exams unless you either A, lose your license and got to do it all over again, or B, you decide to get a broker license. There is a state exam for that. But for your post-licensing and then continuing education you'll have to do afterwards, there's no state exams for those. Your post-licensing, it will have an end-of-course exam, but the difference with this course is, especially since there's no state exam, we have a lot more freedom in the curriculum that we're able to offer to you as our students here at the Tampa School of Real Estate. And so our instructor-led curriculums, which include our live classes as well as our video-on-demand online program, 24/7, anytime, day or night, they all follow this textbook. So you get this textbook shipped to your door, included with your course for free. And again, you could start this as soon as you have your license. If you don't have your license yet, technically you can take the course, but you won't get any credit for it. So you'd have to start it over once you do get your license to be able to do it for credit. And so this course here, though, focuses on business planning, on time management, on presenting offers to clients as opposed to the essentials of a contract, on pricing property to sell as opposed to the basic principles of appraisal. So this is a must-take course. It's literally must-take by your deadline, because if you don't have this done by your renewal deadline, your license goes null and void, and that's when you've got to take this all over from the beginning. Redo the course, redo the state exam, and then take post-licensing like you were required to do in the first place. So don't lose your license because of this. If you're able to get yourself busy enough, you might find yourself busy enough where you don't have time to complete this. Or if you can't figure out what to do, it's probably because you haven't read the instruction manual for it yet. That's really the way I like to think of this post-licensing course. It's much more like the instruction manual of how to actually use your license, whereas this is the warnings. That's what this is right here. You know, you get something, especially if it's electronic, and you open up the manual for it, and at first there's all these warnings, warning, 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 warning. But then it gets into actually how to use it. And that's what this is. Warning, 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 warning. You show you know all the warnings, all the things that are illegal. You pass your state exam, and now how do you actually make money with your real estate license? That's where post-licensing comes in. And this is an essential course, again, not just for your first renewal, but so you actually know what you're doing. And I would recommend this, again, as soon as you've got your license, but at the very least, before you choose a broker. Before you even really start interviewing brokers, because you'll have a better idea of what you're looking for in a brokerage when you've developed your own personal business plan. Because that business plan will likely include at some point in there incorporating yourself. It's definitely something that you'll want to do. Is it something that you have to do? Not really, because again, it's perfectly legal to operate in this way in a personal capacity, but where you get the advantages and benefits are where you now start making money. For tax purposes, it's typically going to be much more advantageous to get yourself incorporated. Again, either as an LLC, PLLC, or PA. So that is the SunBiz. And if you don't have a SunBiz yet, I hope you have one someday. You know, even if it's just something that you're using part-time, such as the real estate license. You could use the real estate license on a super part-time basis with what's known as referrals. And that's where you do need a real estate license for this, and it does need to be active with a referral broker. But with a referral broker, you're not required to become a member of the realtors. You don't have to pay board fees, MLS dues. You don't have to keep up with their ethics, continuing education, and all of that, because as a referral agent, you're not necessarily practicing real estate. So that's why you're able to forego all the expenses of any tools that you might need to actually sell real estate. But instead, you're able to take people that you know, that you meet, leads that you're able to generate even, and simply refer those to another real estate agent, either in your area or outside of your area. Pretty much anywhere worldwide, you can make a referral, and the typical referral fee is usually about 25%. It is negotiable, but I've actually signed one personally for as much as 50% before. And so that percentage of the commission is in exchange for you referring a client to this other brokerage. You sign this one simple one-page referral form, and that's it. Done deal. The other agent closes the transaction, and they send a check back to your referral brokerage, who then pays that to you. And again, anytime you're making money in real estate, this is where the more money you make, the more this will benefit you typically. Double check that with your accountant. Again, I'm not an accountant. What do I know? But generally speaking, the more money you make, the more money you're going to be able to save by taking advantage of properly structuring yourself as a business, even if you are just an associate in a brokerage, even if you're just doing it in a referral capacity. So this is pretty widely applying across any business that's operating in Florida, that's registered with the state, has to renew their SunBiz. So anybody out there who has any sort of business, whatever entrepreneur you may be, make sure you get that done before 11:59 p.m. tonight. That's about all the time that we've got for today's broadcast. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. We'll be back on Wednesday for Ask the Instructor. Until then, have a great rest of your Friday. So you just got your real estate license. How can you jumpstart your real estate business? The number one thing you should do before you do anything else is post-licensing. Now look, this is already a requirement, so you're gonna have to do it anyways, but here's why you wanna do it early. The sooner you do post-licensing, the sooner you're gonna learn the real-world concepts in post-licensing that will help you create a business plan, that'll help you plan for your success in real estate. Post-licensing is all about real-world topics that are usable, that'll help you grow your real estate business. And at Tampa School of Real Estate, we have the best post-licensing courses around. Find out more about how post-licensing can help you jumpstart your real estate career. Go to postflorida.com.
Have you been thinking about getting your Florida real estate license? Look, the process is probably easier than you think. We break it down step by step, how much it's going to cost, what it is that you need to do to get your Florida real estate license. Find out all of that and more at licensefl.com. Again, that's licensefl.com.